It's not for the faint of heart. I might leave my mark, but I won't tear you apart.
Now I'm the one in charge that'll put a smile on your face. I could stimulate, electrify, lean back and take your place. Welcome, Kinky Traveler, to Planet Kink. I'm here with my co-host, the lovely and talented Contessa Alura.
Hello, and thank you. And I am here with my lovely, wonderful, and brilliant co-host, the one, the only, Vibrato.
Well, thank you very much, Contessa Alura. I appreciate that. And let's get on with the show.
Excellent.
Our guest this week on Planet Kink, the man who came up with capital kink in our nation's capital, Canada's capital, Ottawa. We have Duane. Welcome, Duane.
Hello, hello. I'm glad to be here. It's during these times, it's good to hear voices from that world. I haven't heard them for a while.
Yeah, we haven't done a lot really, and it's kind of regretful that everything is kind of on pause. But I imagine you are working on what's to come after this pandemic.
I've been taking a pause from the scene for the last few years, so my head is racing of what I can do, but I don't have any direct plans right now, and I'm not even sure how the Ottawa scene is going to respond to the pandemic. It's hard to predict. I don't know if people will be even comfortable going to fetish and kink parties where it's a little bit more crowded. I think we're all going to have to see what happens as the vaccinations and all the things lift and people can go back and hang out with other people. Go ahead.
Yeah, we're certain.
I want to go back, Vibrato.
Okay.
I just want to go back a little bit. I want to say, so Duane not only, produced Capital Kink, but has been in that Ottawa community for quite a long time. And Ottawa's gone through a lot of different changes in terms of different events. It's a very conservative city. So it's actually really tough to lead and organize events there. But I kind of want to get into I want to start with, I want to know your story. So how,
For sure.
in a city like Ottawa, right? How did you come to be in the kink community? What did it look like when you got in? And then how did your story evolve?
I came to Ottawa in 2005. I had just moved here from Norway. So step in Norway. Norway is where I got involved in the kink community. My first wife, we moved to Norway. I got a job at the United Nations, and she came with me, and it was exciting, but she didn't find a job. She wasn't Norwegian and stuff. And so she started delving into bondage.com, one of the early online sites, but I didn't know anything about it. She was doing this and spending apparently about 8 hours a day online while I was at work. And, I kind of slowly found out about it, but we never really got into it, but I learned from her. So I joined up bondage.com and I started investigating everything because I was still young then and I could absorb knowledge, not like old people do.
Oh, come on.
And unfortunately, our marriage kind of faded away. We're still very good friends. But then I met my second wife in Norway, and she thought she'd seen all the play toys that my wife had, and I had a few because I was just trying to get into it. So she thought I was some experienced dom for like decades or something. She didn't even realize, and I think I was pretty open and honest with her that I didn't know what the hell I was doing. So we kind of
had you been to an event at this point, or this was just literally bondage.com learning on your own?
Learning on my own, learning from what my wife, who now is estranged from me, was doing. And then we just took off. Now, like I said, I'm an adventurous type person in all life. So I just jumped in. I tried to learn as much as I could. And then my second wife, when she become my second wife, we just started experimenting and learning. And she had to look at me as the experienced one. So I had to learn a lot really quick. So I had to know what I was doing. So literally as a dom, mostly in BDSM is what we were doing. I beat the shit out of myself.
Wow.
To this day, not to talk about some doms, but I see them do scenes and I don't think they know what it's like to be hit.
Yeah, that's
which-
problematic.
Yeah, and I think they don't understand how much pain you can inflict and what it does. Now, I used to play football and stuff, so I can take a lot, right? But I have to know, like when I hit someone with a flogger or a cane, how much does it really hurt, right? So I learned that before I started playing on my younger.
That's really amazing. I actually think that that's more rare these days than it used to be back in the day, right? When BDSM was more of like in the gay community and it was kind of hidden. It was much more common for people to start as sub or the bottom and learn and then choose what role they wanted, so they got an experience. But you just went out and were like, no, I want to know what's happening for the other person. That's really beautiful. I really appreciate that.
It's funny. I think at the beginning, I think because I mean, I see a lot of young people get involved and for whatever reasons, maybe good or not, but they just think I'm dominant, so I'm a dom, right? But that's not how it works. But I am usually that person, the more dominant in the relationship when it comes to the sexual side. So it seemed natural, but I had to learn because I was uncomfortable at the beginning. I'm not going to hit somebody without knowing what it feels like. And I wish more doms would do that. And over the years, what happened was I always just identified as a dom. And then I realized maybe 15 years later that I'm a service dom, not a service top, but a service dom. I actually do a lot of it to please my sub. But I am really the dom. It's not like I'm taking orders or anything. It's like before the play scene, we'll discuss it. I'll know what they want. And then I try to fulfill what they want. But in the role, I'm always the dominant during that. Like I play that character. And I think, you'd have to ask my ex-wives. I think I did a good job.
You're fucking awesome. Okay. Just like own it, because you are an amazing dominant, and you definitely are someone that I would say would be, a person that somebody could really mentor under, have a mentee that could learn so much from you, and you have a heart in what you're doing, and you actually care, and you're safe.
For me personally, I don't think I could do it if I didn't care. Right. And that's part of it. It's not some ethereal thing. It's just that's personal to me. And I know some people, it's probably more systematic, more just about sex, more just about the dominance. But for me, it's caring. And when I am in that role, I am in that role. Like I'm like a character actor, right?
For sure.
I get in a role. And it's not that I'm serving them really, because I really enjoy doing it. But as soon as the role's over, I'm just plain old Duane again. And that's the way it was. But it was really funny at the beginning because, like I said, my partner, my sub, she thought I was this guy who knew everything. And I was like, this is like a crash test on your first day at school for me. And,
that's amazing, though. That has its bonuses.
And we learned that way in Norway. So we were together about 2.5 years before we moved to Canada. The scene in southern Norway was almost non-existent. We met a few people online and talked to them. And sometimes we met people like kind of to play kind of in that role, and it never really worked.
How did you meet them?
Pardon?
How did you find the
bondage.com at the time.
Okay.
So it just on the forums.
So no real events or anything like that, or nothing big, just people who would get together.
Ready to go to events yet? I'm sure there were in Oslo, but we were 4 hours away from Oslo. It was not like, and I didn't have a car in Norway, so it was not something you could do. But we went to Berlin, and we went to the Venus Sex Show. And my girlfriend was very young, like she was like 19. That's another issue and another story. Took me a long time to deal with that, not her, but me. And that was all fun, but the real adventure happened when we went to the Kit Kat Club, one of the most infamous sex clubs on the planet.
Yeah,
that is the first club we ever went to.
We've been there. It's like, awesome. Bam, baby.
We couldn't find it first, and we realized it was in like a residential area. It was the weirdest thing.
I think everybody has that problem. Vibrato, did you have that problem?
I use Google Maps, and I had data. I actually had Wi-Fi where I was staying, so I saved that on my maps, and I even took public transit to get there. But Duane, I have something.
Too.
Yeah, I have something to ask you. in regards, or not. Well, first, I just want to comment that what you're saying about being a service top, I think that's important. And I think it's a misconception that a lot of people have about BDSM play is that the top is the person who is not in service, when in fact you're there, or a lot of good scenes are there to facilitate the bottoms fantasies, and it's more work, but it can be satisfying as well to create that scene as a top. So
And and a service top and a service dom are different, and a bottom and a sub are also different.
yeah, there's a lot of phrases, and a lot of, like, even BDSM itself, it means different things depending how you want to take it. So there can be things that are confusing. But you're talking about Norway, and I just listened to, and I can tell you're not from Norway. So can we just back up?
No, I'm not from Norway. My second wife was. I'm from Newfoundland. Maybe you're picking up on the Newfoundland accent. Just
Canadian, or not Norwegians. Like if this person grew up in Norway, they've lost all semblance and connection to that accent. But how did you get to Norway? How did that work? You said your wife wasn't from there either. Was she from Newfoundland as well?
Yeah, she was from Newfoundland as well. We had moved there from Winnipeg, actually. I was working at a sustainable development place, an international place.
Okay.
And I was an intern, and then I had a contract for a while. And then one of our companies that we work with, the organizations we work with, was the United Nations Environment Program. And they have a satellite office in a little town called Arendal, Norway.
Wow.
And after my contract ran up, I got a job with them, and I was a web developer and communication specialist for just over 4 years there.
Nice.
That was going to be my question. I was going to be like, what were you doing for the UN? I got to know. But that's really, really awesome. Really exciting.
That's cool. And your wife was there stuck at home while you're working, and she didn't speak Norwegian. I'm sure, I know most people speak English, but still she's in this foreign country, and she's on the internet looking at bondage.com and got into that. Before that, did you have any inkling or any kind of desires that would lead to that type of kink lifestyle?
I would say I'm just a very open and exploratory person, which kind of led to it. And it was just an avenue that seeing what she was up to led me down. We had been married for 6 years when we went to Norway. So together for about 11 years at that point. And 2 years into our marriage, she discovered she was into women. I guess she was like, being, especially from Newfoundland, where that kind of thing, you just kind of hide it. And then she was with me, I guess. And I'm like, she didn't feel that bad to say, you know what? We had a mutual teacher in archaeology. And she told me one day, said, I kind of want to have sex with our teacher. And I'm like,
that's awesome.
Oh, okay. She's pretty sexy because she's like super smart and stuff. And so from there, we just started going to the alternative club in Newfoundland, because we're so small. There isn't just a gay club or a lesbian club. It's kind of everything together, and they just call it alternative. So she would go there, and then she kind of found a girlfriend in our hometown, which very hard to be open in my hometown. It's a very small town.
Yeah.
Is that still around, that alternative club? Is that still going on?
The Zone, I think so, but I haven't been home for a few years, but I would say yes.
Okay, well, I want you, since you're going to be our contact, I want you to find someone from the Zone that we can interview, because it would be amazing to find someone in a kink community in Newfoundland. That would just be awesome.
Oh yeah, they were the only. There was another alternative club for a while, but I can't remember the name of it. The Zone, I think it's Zone 216. It's down in the George Street area.
Oh, that is so cool.
And is that St. John's, or is that another town?
St. John's, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So that's the biggest town there is in Newfoundland.
Yeah, there are technically other cities, but it's the only real city. Right?
Yeah, it's I guess it's a city, yeah. So you went to how long were you with your first wife before you moved to Norway?
I was with her, I think 12 years before we moved to Norway, 11 or 12. Yeah. We were together in the end, maybe it was 13 years. We were together for technically 16 years.
Did anything ever happen with the prof? The archaeology professor?
No, I
No?
say unfortunate, because it's funny because she joined university after me, and I thought that prof was really hot because I was doing school 2 or 3 years before her,
Right.
and then we had a shared class. So me and one of my buddies, we used to always say we want to have sex with that prof, and then my wife's going, I want to have sex with that prof, and so I don't know if it was because she was a woman and she was attracted to her, because this woman was just she just was really sexy.
Damn.
She was so smart.
So there was never any offer to do something for extra credit.
No, trust me, I
Okay.
would have jumped it if I could have got it, but
Yeah.
I think that might have been a problem for her. It sounds like there were far too many people that wanted her attention.
Yeah.
well, I don't want to say anything about archaeologists because that was my original job, my career. But when archaeologists go up the north and are isolated, who knows what happens? They drink a
Right.
lot and they get close and they're already smelly and they get used to each other's smells. That's
Well, shout
archaeology.
out to whoever you were, teacher. You definitely had an impact on your students that went beyond archaeology. So you will
She
forever
had an
be.
impact on me in archaeology too. So
Did Indiana Jones ever have an influence into your scholastic?
Yeah. Indiana
Studies?
Jones was a grave robber, and archaeologists shouldn't like him.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
He stole things. We don't like that.
Well,
Yeah,
I mean,
bad shame on him.
have you been to the British Museum in London?
Yes, I have.
So isn't that like things they stole from everywhere around the world?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Very
That's all
much.
it
It's,
is.
they're grave robbers. I actually get in conversations with my friends all the time. They used to argue with the Parthenon frieze from
Yes.
Greece.
Yeah.
That they should keep it because they have better technology. But there's what is it called? The Agora Museum now at the base, or the Acropolis Museum.
Right.
It has better facilities than in London, and they're still not returning them. So there's no excuse. They're just grave robbers. So.
Yes, but they'll use that excuse at the end of the day. I can just imagine them saying, "Well, no, you don't understand. We're the ones who are the keepers of all things that are sacred. It's
Yeah.
much better here in the British Museum."
Okay, come on now. Behave ourselves.
Yeah, and
We
they
should.
technically they did buy it, but they bought it from the Turks who were occupying Greece and sold off their antiquities. Another
Yeah.
reason
Wow.
they should return it. It was stolen goods.
Right. No, I agree. I think it all should be put back to where it was taken from, and
Yeah.
we should
Especially,
appreciate.
especially indigenous artifacts and remains. Repatriation should be done everywhere in the world.
Yep. That's
Please
another-
see our next podcast coming up in another year, archaeology with Vibrato.
making things right. Yeah, that's what we'll do next.
Putting
Kinky
things back
archaeology.
together, back in their place. Yeah. Oh my God, we could go on forever about that. Anyway, okay, so
Yeah.
you came back. So you were in Norway, and not very big scene. Everything online, really. Bondage.com. And then what happened from there?
So we came to Ottawa. It was hard finding a job. I figured I'd work with the UN and come to Ottawa.
But you came
Yeah,
you came
easy
to Ottawa with the
job.
second wife. You said like you were.
I
with
went
your
through a
first-
divorce, and my second wife, she was my girlfriend at the time. She came to Canada with me
from Norway.
from Norway. Yeah.
So she was originally Norwegian.
Yeah.
Oh, great. And is she still in Ottawa?
She just recently kind of moved away, but she's still close enough in the area.
Oh, nice. So she likes Canada.
Yeah, and we share custody of our dog. So
Yeah. Well, that's important. Dogs
So-
are hard to leave.
yeah, I'll never leave my dog. But
Yeah.
another thing. So we got here in 2005, and we wanted to look up the scene. But apparently, as you know, a lot of scenes, especially smaller places, there's waves of disruption that happen.
Yeah.
And apparently one had just happened in the Ottawa scene, and everything was shattered just as we were coming.
Oh,
So we
Yeah,
approached
I
like
do
the
remember
first
that.
thing we found online, and they never responded to us. It was like a swingers club, but it was a club kind of place.
mhm.
And then kind of we looked a little bit farther, and we found a place called Breathless, which had just opened up maybe 2 months before we moved there. So we had to meet Miss Jen. Their whole process was you had to go to a couple of open public events. You had to talk to Miss Jen, and you had to be approved before you could go to parties and stuff and then become a member.
So is Breathless the name of the organization or the name of a club?
That was a club that was run by Miss Jen. It was kind of her thing, and she ran it for 6, 7, 8 years, maybe.
It was incredibly well known in Ottawa, and for a while, it was almost the only thing going on.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what my connection was in Ottawa. Prior to that, I didn't really know many events, but Breathless was spectacular. We're going to have Miss Jen on here
Oh, great.
Great.
at some point in the future. Yeah, because I mean,
And it had a dungeon,
you
I
know,
imagine.
an amazing dungeon.
Yeah. It pretty much was focused on BDSM. It did other things too. So the other clubs that were around were either like private groups or they were swinger places
Right.
Yeah.
at the time. And so Miss Jen's place, Breathless, seemed to be the only one. It had a variety of parties, right? But it was kind of like a dungeon, and like the whole place was kind of like a dungeon. You had a social area and stuff like that with the dungeon kind of permanently there. They did change stuff around for different types of parties, but it was really the key center for BDSM for a good 6, 7 years.
Yeah.
Like
That's pretty
straight.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, and to make a distinction for our listeners, so a lot of the adult playground or the adult clubs where you could go and get a membership, and it's kind of like a swingers club. A lot of those had like a little bit of BDSM events from time to time or whatever, but a lot of them back in the day, and when I say back in the day, often I say like at least 10 to 20 years ago. Okay, so more like 15 to 20 years ago, it was kind of there was a bit of a separation between BDSM and sex. And even though there's an overlap, it was kind of like, the world isn't ready for BDSM, so we can get away with having sex openly in these clubs, and that's already big enough. But BDSM is still on the darker side of things, so it's not so comfortable for people to talk about or to be open to.
Yeah, I would say, at that time, that was just when BDSM was starting to come into the mainstream with, I'm trying to remember the name of the movie, the British one, before Kinky Boots. It's a comedy. You probably know.
Hold on, Preaching to the Perverted.
Yes, that stuff like that was coming out into
or
the
public.
Secretary.
Oh my God, those are my favorite.
Secretary. And before I got there, apparently the scene, there was a place called Frankie's or something. I think it was all closed down and gone. And there was bathhouses. So the leather community, they were well established in the BDSM, the gay community, and there was a little bit of crossover, and we did work together sometimes, but they were always well established compared to the other people. But Ottawa, of course, always has issues.
Yeah, and then so the difference between the swingers clubs and what Miss Jen was doing is that her club was a dungeon, right? So you wouldn't go there as a swinger event specifically unless you were open or okay with some level of kink, because there was a dungeon. It didn't mean you have to have dungeon or BDSM play, but she literally built it in a way that BDSM was part of the flavor, right? So as an adult playground or whatever, you could do whatever you wanted. It wasn't like, if you wanted to have kink with your sex, have kink with your sex. And then she had exclusive BDSM parties, which was really rare.
And she also had during the weekdays, I think Tuesday was the polyamorous group or the bisexual group. And then you had the master slave groups, and then they had catered to different types of groups. And then the parties, there would be at least 4 parties a month, like one on the weekends, but some weekends had 2. There would be a Friday and a Saturday. One was like, this is very BDSM, and this one here is more play with sex. You can play in a dungeon, but it's more sex oriented. But it wasn't swingers per se. Now the swinger clubs, they used to have like BDSM themes.
Yes.
But it was like almost like a Halloween light version.
Yeah.
It wasn't really, it was more fetish themed than actual BDSM. A lot of things though in Canada and the United States that kept that type of thing separate was liquor laws in terms of what you can do with BDSM. And a lot of the swinger events were private parties, so they could have liquor and have sex.
It's still an issue.
Yeah.
Vibrato is still an issue, but I think people have kind of been like, let's get over this. And so we overstep that a little bit, even though it can be tricky because they keep the play areas separate and you've got dungeon monitors and so on. And I really do want to get into your events, Duane, before because I want to kind of we'll interview Miss Jen and get that whole piece. But
Okay,
what
yeah.
I think what I really appreciated about her events was that it was unique in that she catered to every group. Like there are segregated groups of marginalized communities. So she had, lesbian events, gay events, leather events. She had just straight sex events. She had, so like almost, every community, poly events and things like that, every community could be there. And it's almost even part of where, for me, the ALCC in Montreal,
Mm-hmm.
the nonprofit that I founded, to me, it was kind of, we didn't do events, but it was based on that philosophy of like, everybody's welcome here. Why are we a bunch of segregated communities doing all these things separately? Why don't we just have a place where we can all get together in our little separate spaces and combined? And she managed to make that happen.
Those events that she had that weren't play parties, that were catered to different groups, that was so they can discuss, almost like I wouldn't say AA meeting, bad, but
No,
so you can sit and discuss your issues.
They were discussion groups. Yes.
And it allowed a lot of people with those kinks to find a place to talk. And then some of them then would meet other people and realize they weren't alone, or they weren't weird, or, it was actually normal. It might've been, not mainstream, but other people were like them. And then they would start coming to the play parties and joining the groups. But those events were free for the people. There was a lot of free events so they can come. And sometimes they would just have, BDSM movie night, stuff like that.
Yeah, that's cool.
Just
I
so
didn't
they
know
could
that,
socialize.
actually.
Yeah.
Oh, and when did you
go ahead.
when did you start Capital Kink?
So what happened was, I think the scene started getting a little overwhelming for some people, and that happens. Like we said, when you're trying to make it your living, there's no money in it, right? You really have to be dedicated. And Miss Jen wasn't. I think at a time she was just getting frustrated with it. And I think it was in 2009. So she was doing fetish balls before, and then she would have them once a year. And then in 2009, she was like, I don't want to do this anymore. So a month and a half before, I kept looking around and I'm like, I had help. I stepped in before and I designed a logo and started branding, created a web page for them. Just, to have that stamp, this is us, right? And that logo still people recognize it now. And that helps get people concentrated. And then when she said she didn't want to do the fetish ball, like everyone was waiting for that, because Ottawa never had any big events.
Yeah.
That was the only thing that was kind of big, right? It was an annual thing. And I said, I'm not going to let that happen. Miss Jen, if you allow me to do it, I will do the fetish ball. So I did the breathless fetish ball that first year.
Yeah.
In 2009.
Yeah, 2000. I think it was, I'm not sure if it was 2009 or 2008.
Okay.
I'm getting old now. I hit
All right.
50 and my brain is
I
going
know,
to
right? Damn
That was
it.
a while ago.
50.
But coming back for a second, why did you choose Ottawa when you left Norway? Because you lived in Winnipeg and you lived in Newfoundland. You grew up in Newfoundland, I guess, and but then you decided to go to the nation's capital. Was it for work, or was there something about Ottawa that drew you in? I
had two choices. I was trying to find. I decided to leave Norway. I got a divorce. I had some issues at work. Try not to regret leaving that job at UN now, but at the time I made my decision, and I was looking for work all over the world. I actually got to the final two in Kuala Lumpur for a WWF. I almost got a job in Toronto with was it TVO, doing education stuff online for them. And I just want to clarify. I just want to clarify to everyone, WWF was not the World Wrestling Federation.
Come on, World Wrestling Federation. Of course it was. He was going to be a wrestler. What are you talking about?
Well, he did play football, so maybe there's some. I just wanted to make sure.
It was definitely the WWF, the World Wildlife Foundation.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
And I almost had another job in London, and I got right to the end, didn't come through, and then I said, you know what? I got to go home, right? Because your visa only lasts so long. I can't just go to another country. I thought I'd stay in Europe, but you just can't do that, right?
Right.
Unfortunately,
so
21
Vancouver
days, every
was
21
my
days,
choice.
you got to touch down on Canadian soil when you're a Canadian.
Yeah, Vancouver was my first choice, but Vancouver's very expensive, and I didn't have anyone there I knew that well. So I had to go somewhere where I could live off the funds that I still had in my account. And I had a sister in Ottawa, so that's why I chose Ottawa.
There you go.
There you go.
Family, so that makes sense.
Wow, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Did you stay with your sister
but Vancouver
for a couple
was
weeks?
my first choice, but logically I had to go to Ottawa.
Yeah, no,
I'm still here.
I moved here because I had somewhere to stay. I have an aunt and some cousins here in Vancouver, so I moved here in '92. I probably would live in Toronto or somewhere else if
I could
moved
never
here.
live in Toronto unless I had that job and I loved the job.
I could
because
never live in Toronto either.
Toronto's not my kind of scene.
Yeah, I didn't
I'm in
really love it.
Alberta, and that's hard enough because I hate
So,
this
sorry,
weather.
Toronto people out there.
No
I'm
offense,
a
Toronto
Habs
people.
fan. I could never live in Toronto.
That's okay. They know. They live there. So you see you're back in Ottawa, and well, not back, but you were with your sister, and then you found a job there and started to make your life with your girlfriend from, or I guess who would eventually be your second wife, who
Yep.
you met in Norway. Yeah.
Yeah, we
and
actually got married in Norway. We went and traveled back to get married there.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So you,
Yeah.
you were in Ottawa, and then you went back to Norway to get married, and then you came back to Ottawa.
Yeah. Well, we just went out there for a few weeks and
Right.
did our honeymoon. Went to like Moscow, places like that for a honeymoon.
Your honeymoon was
And
in
since-
Moscow.
Part of it, yeah.
Oh wow, that's different. You don't hear of that as a typical honeymoon destination, but yeah,
I'm
why
not. I'm not typical.
There you are, like you said.
I know, I love it. You're so off the
Yeah.
wall. It's great. Like
Yeah.
you're just the most interesting person I know.
Yeah, I spent overnight in Chernobyl a
Skekkies.
year and a half ago. Like that's the things that excite me. So
Now, in Chernobyl, did you have to wear like special equipment and
I was gonna say, are you glowing these days? You must be glowing
no,
now.
but you're only allowed a short time, right? There are people who work there. They're only allowed
Yeah.
to be there 2 weeks at a time, and they have to go out.
right?
There are some people who actually technically live there, but they had to sign a waiver saying they don't get any state health care.
Right.
Wow, yeah, you can't.
Yeah, and the radiation is still very high in very big
yeah.
areas.
Yeah.
Like,
I wonder
there's
what
a lot of spaces.
what are the sunsets like?
Beautiful.
Yeah, sure they glow.
And they're not green or anything like that. They're
No,
normal.
oh well.
I did a
Yeah.
whole project on Chernobyl. Anyway,
Right.
so
Let's get back
so
to
you
Chernobyl.
did cap the breathless ball, basically the FET ball, and that was around 2009-ish, 2008.
2008.
Yeah, I'm just trying to
2009.
remember the years. I think that was 2008, and I think 2009 might have been the first time I used capital Kink name, right?
Okay.
Because it was bigger than what Breathless was doing. So that first fetish ball, so instead of the Embassy West basement, where it's just like a little hall where people have things, and I had 6 weeks, I said, you know what, we're going to blow this up. So I had already met Contessa, and so I knew some of the Toronto people, I knew some of the Montreal people, and Ottawa was different than both.
Yeah.
You love the show off of Montreal, like, they have cameras everywhere. You can't do that in Ottawa.
The red
No
carpet,
cameras ever. There's politicians, right? That you can't
Yeah.
take pictures, right? So government workers.
I totally commend you for just being like wanting to make it that big in that conservative, the capital of Canada. You do not put kink out there anywhere. You got to keep that hidden inside. And Duane's like, nope, this is going to be something people are going to.
And what was the time of year that it happened?
It was the first one would have been. I'm trying to remember if it was. I think it was September.
So
it's
it's
either
like-
September or November.
So is this after the Montreal Fetish Weekend?
Yeah, so it probably was November. The
Okay.
first time I did it, that was there because I remember it being really cold outside, and all the latex people were not comfortable.
That's right.
Latex is tricky. You can get really hot or you can get really cold. That's
Yeah.
why my Vibrato outfit is open. The latex one that I had, you probably know the person who actually made the latex for me. She's from Ottawa. Is Cheeky Latex.
I know her. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So the way we designed it is like a V that just has a strap down the arms. And I did that specifically because I've had full latex outfits before, and I spent a lot of time in South Florida. So I was like, you know what? I don't want to be in full latex, in Florida like that.
That's why they have the ocean. You just jump in the ocean.
I just like it to be open, so I'm not too hot, not too cold. I'm good. Like I can wear a jacket if it gets cold, but otherwise, yeah.
I
so
wear shorts when it's minus 20. I would die in latex.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
you would die in latex. And by the way, don't jump in the ocean with latex. People don't realize salt is not good on latex. So stick to your chlorine pools. They will keep your latex fantastic. Just
The more
Especially
you
if-
know, do the
Especially if you have like vibrating motors as well attached to a battery.
yeah, Yeah, that might not be a good idea. Water and motors. Although you'd be vibrato in a whole other level, wouldn't you?
I'd be on fire, baby.
You'd be electro at that
Yeah.
point.
It's a different character completely. Vibrato
Okay,
becomes
sorry.
electro.
Moving on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
Moving
right.
on.
So Capital Kink, you started in November, and then you decided, well, maybe this is too cold, so you moved it to a different time of year.
Yeah. So the first year it was still the Breathless Fetish Ball, and I moved it from like the hotel, where some people would rent the rooms and have little
Right.
side
Parties.
swinger things, and then
Yeah.
we have a little bit of a ball and a dance. I rented Capitol Music Hall, so it's one of those with a fancy stage. It's where all the hockey players go party with bottle service and stuff, and that cost like $6,000, and I had like
Eee.
no money. So
It was incredible. I was like blown away. I'm like, what? This is where we're doing. Oh, holy crap, man.
How many
and
people?
once I
Oh, you must be
decided,
rich.
once I decided that place, I said, now I got to get a show, because I concentrated the party on the stage show. Everything else will happen. The dungeon, the play, the little bit of drinking, because they're not heavy drinking in the BDSM scene. That will happen anyway. But what Ottawa never had was a freaking stage show, right? Like
Okay.
the Montreal Fetish Weekend would have. So I contacted Contessa, because not only was she the only one that really stood out in the Fet Ball from the year before, I had talked back and forth, and she really cares about the Ottawa scene, probably more than most people that I knew in the Ottawa scene itself.
Nice.
And I think most people don't realize how much she put into the Ottawa scene and helping out people.
Thank you.
And I know some people did know that, and they were probably a little jealous too, right? So that's another thing, another talk with the whole subculture and jealousy and egos and stuff. So
Politics.
we had this party, we had a dungeon set up along the side, it had the balcony on the top. And
I just remembered the fire show. Oh
And-
my god! Oh my god! Oh
the
my
fire
God.
show was
What happened to
the
the fire
next
show?
party.
Oh yeah.
That-
Okay. Sorry.
That was the Hellapalooza.
I'm sorry. Okay, I will put that aside. I just had a flashback. So anyway, carry on, Capital Kink. This is not. Yeah.
So what I did was I got some local people, but I got Contessa to bring some of the Montreal crowd in, who became good friends of mine. They stayed at my house, and they were doing a favor to me. I mean, I only had a little bit of money, so they kind of split up what they could. I made sure they had rides to come in. We got a hotel for some people, and other people could stay at my house. I did whatever I could with zero budget.
Yeah. Nice.
Extended myself, and I actually made a little bit of money, which was great.
And you know what? All of those people felt really well cared for, and also like well compensated. And each
Yeah.
group, these were really big people in Montreal. There was a couple of different entertainers, and they were just like, yeah, great. I mean, we even get a ride down there where we don't have to pay. And then we get a little bit of, cash while we're there.
Yeah.
And what they wanted to do was just to make sure they had all their equipment paid for. And believe it or not, Duane, most other people weren't really supporting in that way.
I drove some people to Montreal and back and forth in my own car.
Wow.
I know. So that's the thing,
like an
right?
hour and a
Like
half
you were
drive,
so
right?
dedicated, and we just made that happen. It was like, okay, these are the people, and they're like, yeah, Ottawa, right on. And they were
Well,
excited.
I think the people who volunteer, perform, like everyone that's working, I think most people understood that I appreciated them before, during, and after any event. I always try to do that, because without them, there is no event, right? And I remember running around, because we have a dress code, and I'm running around in cargo shorts and a t-shirt. I'm the only one, because I haven't had time to change. I got $6,000 of 20s in my pocket, in open pocket, and anyone could have stolen it. It could have fallen out, and I would have been absolutely screwed if that happened.
Oh my God.
But to follow up, a lot of the goth community was the youth people were a lot of the goth community. They were kind of interested in the BDSM, the look and feel, and the leather. So a lot of them were at that party, and I was friends with them. So they had an event called Hellapalooza. They had me. I don't want to, in case someone's listening from that, but I did pretty much all the work for the party part of it, right?
Right.
And that's when I kind of hired Contessa. I said, here's my budget. Bring as many performers as you can with this budget. Get them here, rent a van, whatever you got to get. You're in charge of that. And it's funny, because we met one of our a friend that I had after that, her name was Lyria. She was 18. She was lost. She didn't know what to do. Everyone was kind of like taking advantage of her and stuff. And I made her Contessa's assistant. I didn't know what else to do with her, right? She just
amazing.
I volunteer for a free ticket. I'm like, yeah, you can be her gopher. And then I remember that clearly because after the show, Contessa said she did excellent. And it was from that point that Lyria became my stage manager because I hated being a stage manager, by the way. I don't have time. Oh my God, that's so.
Duane doesn't want the limelight, and the poor man runs around like a chicken with his head cut off. And it's just like, how do you make this happen? He's just like, it just happens.
So how many?
And I love it. When she turned 19, she became a stage manager of the first weekend-long Capital Kink, which happened the year later. And you know, a lot of people are just looking at her as like this young sub who didn't know anything. And I told all the other managers and workers, like, when it comes to the stage, she's the boss.
Yep.
Whatever the fuck she says, you listen to. And there were some doms well established in the scene that started berating her and thought they could overtalk to her.
That's too bad.
And I remember she started breaking down, and I had to set her aside and said, look, I know it's emotional. You're the boss. You can boss me around. You just can't have the money, but because I got to take care of that part of it. But anything goes with the stage, because when you got performers and you got times and got schedules, you have to make the performers happy. You have to make sure that it's ready on time. And when they ask for ridiculous stage props, you got to find them.
Yeah.
And the other thing too is that, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Vibrato.
Thanks. I was just wondering how many people were in attendance to the first Capital Kink that you got that great venue
the
for.
The first fetish ball, we had about 300 people.
Okay. It's pretty good.
And then the Hellapalooza one, it was a little bit less. And it was because the goth people didn't show. All the kinky people showed up. And that's when they had the fire show. Like I was going out of my mind because Carnival Abraxas had,
they were incredible. First of all, they were like amazing.
Oh, it was insane. And the Ottawa crowd, they didn't know what to do.
What was that act about?
I've never seen anything like this. These sexy people blowing fire everywhere and dancing.
They were fire performers, and they had, one of them had like a fan of fire, and she would do this whole dance. And then you had two people standing on each side. And I feel really bad that I can't remember their name because they are amazing performers. And they literally both blew flames so big and so high. And we did not have a fire license.
I'm trying to remember their kink names, but it was I'm not gonna say anyone's real name, but I do know them. Fine. And it was
Carnival Abraxas, though. That's the name of the fire performers.
And it's where Natasha Nebula, she was part of that group, and I think it might have been just learning fire play. And there was trying to remember the young guy's name. He was a little. He
was so great too. I can't remember his name. Because I had an amazing play scene with him afterwards. Oh my God, it was so incredible.
He did catch his butt on fire though at one point.
But did anyone get hurt?
No.
Oh, that's good then.
But I was frightened because they did this circle thing where you do breathe the fire, and then as they breathe the fire, the next person would. But it went up to the ceiling and it was spreading across the ceiling. And I'm going, oh my God, I'm going to get arrested.
Duane is shitting himself, being like, oh no, please don't set anything on fire. They were just like, we just had no idea how amazing these people were.
Yeah. But the guy who ran the club, he did pyrotechnics, so he knew it was all right.
Yeah.
I didn't. Exactly. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to lose all my money. I'm going to get arrested. I'm going to be on the news. These mostly naked, sexy people catches the bar on fire.
And for our kinky traveler out there listening to this, a lot of times you're not going to see fire play at events, and it has to do with the venue, especially indoors, because there are height requirements for ceilings if in most places for regulations and safety. Yeah. So
and you have to have substantial
insurance.
Insurance. Now here's the thing. This is like, quite a few years ago, and some things, everything, all the safety stuff was in place, and the height was well in place. We just didn't know that they could reach heights that were unbelievable. Right? Like there was no like, oh, well, they'll never touch the ceiling. That's impossible. They literally were that good that they could project fire that far. And we just were like, oh, well, okay.
They're dragging people.
I disclosed everything we were doing. So he approved it beforehand because they were selling alcohol there too. So we had to get a lot of approval.
Although the alcohol could help with the fire sometimes.
Yeah.
It was
a great
amazing.
stage show. We had some local people. We had the Montreal crowd. And then the next year after, that's when Capital Kink really came in, and I made it a whole weekend. So we had workshops, we had an exploratorium, we had a dungeon, and we had our play party.
Nice.
And that was very successful. I broke even, but everybody had a great time.
Yeah.
We had 10 workshops. We had people from New York, from Montreal, Toronto, and then local people. And then the year after that is when I invested a lot of extra money to really kind of push this, because I wanted Ottawa to have an event to put us on the map. You know, because most people think Ottawa's a boring place. It kind of is. But I want an event where people go, yeah, you remember when that happened? And oh my God. So I got Jean Bardot to come in, and I flew her in from Minneapolis. That was above and beyond. I was talking to one of our latex guys.
And Jean Bardot is one of the most famous fetish models and performers around. So that's in case you're wondering who he means.
Yeah, and she was absolutely fantastic. She said, "What do you want? You know, what do you want to do?" It's like I paid for her flight, and I paid her salary. She kept it low. She realized I was an up and coming place, so it wasn't too expensive. And then she split some of it with Montreal. So she set up a bunch of photo shoots and stuff in Montreal. So that helped me a lot, which was great, right? Because my budget was like perfectly balanced. And then I added her just to go over the top. And all I wanted from her was, I said, okay, I want you to do one stage show. And then after that, I just want you to walk around as long as you feel comfortable and talk to people. And that's it. And then come to the clue up party. And one of our latex people, a good friend of mine, he was in heaven. She got the saran wrap out and wrapped him up to a pole. So she had the Miss Rubber from the year before, you know, wrapping him up in public. And I think that was just a great scene. It was just so casual too, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
That event was so good because it became a 5-day kind of event.
Yeah.
You put Ottawa on the map. Ottawa had a fetish weekend.
And we were at a church.
That, Duane. I mean, like, kudos, man. Seriously.
Yeah, we were at a church, a decommissioned church.
Church.
And we had our workshop. We had an exploratorium. We had our huge dungeon with, like, I think it was 16 play stations in the basement of a church with the old kind of stone walls. It was a beautiful setting. And then we had this giant stage with, you know, unfortunately for religious people, still Jesus statues on poles on the stage. And we also included a fashion show that weekend, and we had a dinner party, and we had a going away party kind of for people who bought the VIP tickets. They could sit with the performers who were still around. And we worked together with Mr. Leather Ottawa for that weekend.
Yes.
So we could split the cost of the rental and stuff.
I have to tell you a funny story about that. Okay. So all the Mr. Leather guys are there. And I mean, these are our gay male community, right? The leather community. Yeah. And I remember I was accosted. My ass was like grabbed like everywhere I would turn. And I'm wearing my red latex catsuit. And I was just like, wait a minute, what's going on? I'm like surrounded by gay men. And then I went up to Mr. Rubber, right? Mr. Rubber Ottawa. Or I think it was Mr. Rubber. Yeah, Mr. Rubber. And I was like, okay, what's the deal? Like, I know you guys, I love you guys, and I'm always in your community, but like, I'm a woman. And they're like, Alura, we know asses, girlfriend, and you got it. And I was like, okay, caress away, you know?
I always ask for permission, but I would have loved to grab her ass too. I mean, you kind of notice it. I do. Yeah, she has a face too, but she has a really freaking awesome
I'm joking
ass.
when I say accosted because they were always asking. It was like a friendly ha ha ha, and it's like, oh, you have a pretty nice butt there. And I was like,
that was a bit of a, you know, because Mr. Leather Ottawa was very well established.
Like you moved from November to a different time of year. So when was the next few parties?
The first one was November. We switched it into September, 2 weeks after the Montreal Fetish Weekend.
Oh, okay. That's a good idea.
And we did that for 2 years. And then the last year I did the big events, which is Capital Kink Weekend. We moved it back to early November because we worked with Mr. Leather Ottawa, and that's when their big event was.
I see. So it can coincide so you can share the costs.
Yeah. And we said we did a 5-day thing. There was some headbutting at the end, and like I'm trying to be as nice as possible, but they're well established, and there were some miscommunications with some people. And we opened up our events to all the people that were in their event.
Right.
Because I'm like, the more the merrier. Like, come party, come down to our dungeon. They were having their big ball upstairs, and we had a massive dungeon set up. And we're like, as long as they got a pass for their event, they can come into mine. But they resisted on letting our people up until after midnight. And we just like, because they had vendors up there, and their vendors are selling leather and BDSM stuff. And I'm like, well, we got about 100 people in the dungeon tonight that might want to go up and buy your stuff.
I'm sure the vendors would have appreciated it too.
Yeah. We opened the doors and everyone was happy. And then at our ball, there was roughly 450 people there, which still to this day, as far as I know, is the largest kink event Ottawa's ever seen. Because like Sexapalooza and stuff, that's just a trade show, right?
Right.
So this was a specific kink event. There was 450 people in attendance.
Sexapalooza is probably out here called Taboo.
Yeah.
The Sexpo.
Actually, you know what's interesting is Taboo was exclusively the West Coast, exclusively West. So that's the Taboo Sex Show. And in Montreal, it was the Salon de l'Amour. And in Ottawa, it was Sexapalooza. And it was like that for a couple of years. And Salon de l'Amour it was the everything to do with sex show, she tried to come in and then it got blocked. It was, and to me, like you said, it's just the Sexapalooza was so disappointing to me.
Yeah.
Because I was at the Venus Sex Show in Berlin, and there was lots of sex and stuff. And then again, we went to Sexapalooza and we were volunteering for the dungeon and stuff. And my wife got in trouble because she was walking around with black tape on her nipples. And they're like, you can't do that. And I'm like,
you have to take the black
Sexapalooza, right? And you're selling beer, so it's adult only.
You have to take the black tape off. Is that why?
Liked it after that.
No, it was like you couldn't even hiding nipple. You could because they knew there were nipples underneath.
Yeah, no, I get it.
It's the weirdest. They were so afraid somebody might get offended and they get shut down. I'm like, it's called Sexapalooza. If they gave you a license to be at the convention center, they must know you have sex stuff.
And I want to.
I'm gonna tell you a little secret. Okay, so we were told I think it was for Hellapalooza. We were told, was it the convention center?
Hellapalooza?
Was that the convention center where you did the Hellapalooza?
No, that was the Capitol Music Hall as well.
Capitol Music Hall. Okay, so Duane's like, okay, Laura, the only thing is we can't have anybody, doing anything like sexual on stage. Like they can't actually do real penetration or anything like that.
Yeah, no penetration.
That's right, because I had all these demons, right? And we're going to hell, man. It's Hellapalooza.
Yeah.
666, you wake up in hell, and that's what we're gonna do. And I was like, no, man, I want to real orgy on stage. And Duane's like, it's Ottawa. We just want to okay.
And they were selling alcohol, so it was. And
I totally was like, just fuck on stage. They're not. It's just part of the performance. They're not going to pull us off the stage.
I do,
but I'm sorry, Duane. I just want to let you know that I was cheeky and behind the scenes, and I respected what you said, and I totally was a bad girl. Okay, I just want to say.
I'm pretty sure behind you there was 6 of the Mr. Leather Ottawa group, the muscly hot guys painted in red, and your assistant at the time, the very young girl who's never been at a public event, was pretty much naked, and they were all I can say is from the balcony, and I was still running around. I couldn't see any penetration, but their bodies were so entwined like a den of snakes mating. That's all I gotta say. And I was happy as hell that it happened.
Those were the days.
I just want to clarify again for our kinky traveler that fetish events like Capital Kink and Vancouver Fetish Weekend, Torture Garden, that kind of thing, the weekends are events that bring people in. Like that's a reason to travel. That's a reason that places like Essen, Germany and Ottawa are exciting to see. But these Sexapalooza taboo shows, they're really, and the reason that people are disappointed because they're nothing like a major fetish event. They're just a convention. So they're kind of like a bunch of adult stores in one place. So
you have vendors who are selling adult clothing, but although I will tell you that the Taboo Sex Show has major fantastic performances now, right? But you're not going to have play. Although to be fair, Vibrato in Montreal, the one that I organize,
But that's a different
Okay.
story, right?
Yeah. So the sex show has all the vendors and the stage show, and then they've got the kink area. And we basically allow people to come in, vanilla people, that, and I don't mean that derogatory, but anyone who has not had any experience with kink or BDSM or anything like that, we usually have several different stations where you can literally try a vac bed, which is being underneath, squished between latex.
That's
You
a
can
good
try
idea,
that. You can try some flogging. You can try the spanking area. We've got a bondage area. Also, that the general public can get a real sense of what it's like and why people do these things, and to see it in without its sensationalized kind of, more extreme side, and you get to really experience it for what it is and why people, like those kinds of things.
And to be honest too, at Sexapalooza, that's why we were there, because we were helping run the dungeon. Miss
Exactly.
Jen was doing it through Breathless, so people could try things out at the beginning. But the stage shows were really tame. Like I said, you couldn't show breast even with tape on them. But it did get better later on. I just didn't attend anymore. They had better shows, but it was still nothing like the Venus sex show, which is also a trade show, but they have porn stars doing, triple penetration in front of audiences. None of that would happen in Ottawa, right?
No.
But I understand, especially in the early days, the organizer was so afraid of the Ontario laws and what would happen and stuff.
Yeah.
But what you were actually organizing in the dungeon or the kink room of the Montreal show, Contessa Alura, I call that, or it's often called, the Taste of Kink, and that is a lot of fun, and it's also really good for new people because, like you said, you get to try different things and you understand how they feel, and you don't have to be intimidated by all the experts around and feel like you're out of place and
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. You have really open-minded, easygoing people who have been in the scene for a long time. They're really welcoming. They will go out into the kind of crowd area and say, who would like to try. Most of them have demonstrations before we open up the space so that you get to see what it looks like, and then they invite people in after they kind of talk on the mic. Here's what I'm doing. This is what it looks like. It's so great. It's so educational that I'm just glad that over the years, because when that first started, like all over Canada, specifically Ottawa was like behind the black curtain. You do not see anything and you keep it very tame. But the rest of Canada had, the dungeon area, but it was, like you say, kind of like hidden. And most people couldn't take pictures or do anything really interactive in there. It was just to look at scenes and things like that, right? And it's really, really evolved. I'm not going to toot my own horn, but kind of like, I was like, nope, we need to step this up, because if people don't get a chance to try it, then it really is a trade show and you really are just buying clothing, otherwise it's like, hey, why don't you try this out? So,
and that's why at the Capital Kink weekend, we had the Exploratorium, which was on the Friday night, where experts would come in and they would have the station set up and they would do demos, but it wouldn't be like a workshop, but they might explain it, but you can then openly go up and talk to them even while they were doing the demo, right? Because it wasn't a scene, it was just showing them.
Exactly.
And then by the end of the night, some people did play on those things. So those people were already kinky enough to come out to a kink event.
Right.
But a lot of people are still shy and they're like, well, I'm not going to get on that table. But because it was such an open, inviting kind of way to do it, and they would learn. Yeah, I think a lot of people benefited from that. And, you would see them out at the regular play parties 2 months later, flogging away at their partner. And it was
awesome. Yeah. A great introduction
really great.
to people. Yeah.
And when was the last Capital Kink?
The last Capital Kink event was 2011. But after that, under the Capital Kink kind of umbrella, the scene kind of got watered down for a while and there was a lot of drama. So you just step back, and I did a couple more events with some of the other people in the scene, tried to do a couple regular old style play parties at some different locations. And then I came up with triple penetration parties.
Okay.
They were not a weekend long. They were one night, but the triple penetration, provocative as it is. And trust me, one of my favorite things is coming up with ideas, planning the party, getting the people involved, and then doing the photo shoots and making the posters. That's actually my favorite part, is coming up with the look and feel and making the websites.
Wow, we need a website.
So the triple penetration parties.
I was just going to be like,
separate themes. Yeah, we'd have 3 separate themes. So we found a studio that did Zumba classes and salsa dancing.
Yeah.
And they had these separate rooms that we could have, a food station. It was great, little place out to the side. And then we had 3 separate rooms with hardwood floors, big ceilings, nice and bright. And we would have a little area where we could have a little small stage to do a little showcasing on one of the 3 themes. But each section was its own theme. So we'd have like 6 different electrical stations and rope bondage and then grappling, right? So it was a way for me to appease there aren't any more parties because Breathless had closed down at this point.
Right.
And also appeal to whatever's popular at the time, because rope play and grappling were pretty popular. So you get them in there. And then to highlight something that never happens in Ottawa. So one time we had latex. There's just no latex parties in Ottawa until I did the fetish parties.
Yeah.
So latex people are a very small community, but it's because they would come out to the BDSM parties. Some of them were bold, but most of them, it didn't really appeal to them.
No, they're more about the fashion.
Yeah. So I would have the latex people, and we had, I think, I don't know because I was running around doing anything, but we got the latex weather balloons as a station. And I'm thinking 12 people got inside of it. I don't know how that works, but they got all these people were inside of it. It was crazy. And they were all like naked and sweaty. And I remember the hardest part of doing the first event was the owners. I actually knew them from teaching Zumba at the YMCA because
That's
I'm a spin instructor.
hilarious. That's freaking
And
hilarious.
they're the sweetest, nicest people. The guy's name is Soul. He's a little Malaysian guy, and he's just like so nice. And when I proposed to them, I want to have a sex party at your place, they just looked at me like, I don't understand what you're saying. So I had to sit down with them and explain it. And I made an arrangement with them, whatever you're comfortable with type thing. So I was allowed penetration, just only with toys.
Right.
So full nudity and penetration, just not actual sex. And they were okay with that. And I invited them to be at the party, and they stayed in the building in their kind of upper room. And they came down a couple times. You could see how curious they were.
That's hilarious.
And they, after the first party, they loved us, right? Because we're all so nice. We're not like drunk, crazy sex people going around and doing bad things. We're
Not destructive
to ourselves. Yeah. And that was a real big success. I think we probably had about 300 people there, it's big in Ottawa. I mean, most of our play parties are 20 to 30 people.
And when was the first triple penetration?
The first triple penetration, I'm going to say, was 2013. So it had been about a 2-year break of doing.
Yeah.
I had done like 3 smaller parties and one kind of bigger event with Exploratorium. It was a 2-day thing. But it wasn't specifically Capital Kink. So then I came back into it. That was 2013, and I did 3 of those. The last one was in, I'm going to say 2015 or 2016. That was the last one I did. And then I just kind of pulled away for personal reasons.
And they were all at the same venue?
Yeah.
Now I saw on FetLife that there's going to be another one September 27th, assuming that COVID, is done. We're out of the.
That's a big assumption, I think.
Yeah, but that's.
Here's the thing: because of the reasons why I pulled away from the scene, I haven't been on FetLife in 5 years.
Wow.
So I don't have a pulse of the scene. Over those 5 years, I've had a roller coaster ride, and it comes back to me like I get an idea in my head. I'm like, okay, we got to do this. So I contact people who I know are probably still in the scene, get their feedback. And then my role, I wanted to, and we haven't done it yet. I was in a serious relationship with someone who is not kinky whatsoever.
Right.
And I had to 100% pull away from all of it.
Well, that's too bad.
But when I did have these things, I would approach people and say, look, I'll back you up for the finance part of it. I will find the venue. I will do the producing of it. But I do not want to be at it. I don't want to be running around like a chicken with its head cut off like I always did. And I want them to take the glory and use whatever the current feel of the community is, right? Because I'm not really tapped into that pulse, but I can still organize, plan, and help them. So that's kind of the role I've been thinking about.
So even though you don't necessarily know what's next, and you're not even necessarily sure if you're going to have anything to do with it. I'm going to promise the world right now that we have not seen the last of you, but it's going to take something unique, right? Unique, a good team of people who are really serious, who are also not with all the BS and all the drama and issues and whatever, like a core group of people who are really in to create something fantastic in Ottawa post COVID, you know, because we don't know how that's going to unfold. And it's all in the ether right now, but we've definitely not seen the last of you. And it's great sometimes to have a break because it is a lot.
I might still be involved, but you won't see me. I'll be behind the scenes.
That's fine. But
I
can tickle you.
Yeah.
I know how to tickle you.
So there's someone else putting it out there that triple penetration will happen September 27th. That's not something that you necessarily.
Did someone say it's called triple penetration?
Well, I just went on to FetLife, which is, you know, for our kinky traveler who might not know, it's basically like a Facebook of kink, and there is a profile for Capital Kink, and there was a venue for September 27th for triple penetration.
Probably not 2022.
No, it can't be. It can't be. If it's after 2016, I have a major issue with that because I have not.
Oh, you know, this is my fault. I have to apologize. I see that.
Yeah, it must be outdated, right?
It was 2014. This is old.
Yeah.
Yeah, never mind.
So if you see the pictures and the posters, we did those photo shoots, and I remember the first Capital Kink, Contessa and the Montreal crew did the photo shoot for me. I still have those pictures.
Okay.
That's so great. That was such a great time. Yeah, but anyway, so that's the thing is like, who knows really? I mean, what's going to be happening in Ottawa moving forward, right? Who knows what that's even going to look like? So, you know, but I think I reminisce of the days of past, and I think
you know a lot has happened.
Yeah.
There was a lot of. Again, remember we said there's like waves of things that disrupt the whole community, and I started in the community just as big explosion happened. Someone was suing someone or something happened, or someone accused somebody, and then everyone just scrambles and goes back, hides in their shell. And that's when I first joined in Ottawa, and it's like it was so disoriented and there was no focus, and Breathless kind of brought that in because they needed something. Yeah. That happened twice while I was in the scene, where there was a big event that ruined it kind of for everyone, and there's egos fighting, and that's one of the things. A lot of, I'm gonna probably get in trouble for this if Ottawa people are listening. There was a lot of people who kept touting the word community, and I never felt like I could say that. Like I did a lot of events, I was involved in a lot of stuff, but usually when the people here were saying that, they were trying to get some kind of authority to say that they have the right to decide how it gets policed.
Yeah.
And that's not how the community should work, right? And I think those people were more about their egos and that I'm somebody important. And that's going to happen in every scene where you get, I mean, I know it happens in Montreal. There's a lot of headbutting.
It happens here in Vancouver.
And I was just going to, here's the thing. This is something interesting about, I mean, first of all, the BDSM or kink communities are based on role plays. And some people take these roles very, very seriously. And sometimes they are very serious, right? Yeah. And so you live in these communities have dominatrixes and male doms and sirs and masters and slaves and mistresses and, bottom subordinates. And like, so there's all of these, they're all egos. Okay. And this is the opportunity. A lot of egos. Right. And people get to be out in fantasy world. And sometimes people forget that it's not, that we still have to kind of conduct ourselves in a certain way. And, when kink became, or BDSM parties became mainstream, right? We lost some of the protocols, the etiquette, and the kind of behaviors that would be unique to our community that really made it like a notch above your average party, where there was extended respect and extended kind of like courtesy to your fellow person and a lot of checking in and a lot of negotiation. And it just kind of got messy, because we went mainstream. So this is how it happens. And then you've got people who aren't even kinky doing kink events. You've got people who are, who've been in the BDSM scene forever and they're really passionate about what they're doing. And then you've got people who go, hey man, I could do that. And I want to be a star too. And then it's just like, you get this whole mismatch of people. And what's something that's like, it's kind of like a double-edged sword. Okay. So you've got this ebb and flow of every community, and the BDSM kink community and fetish. I'm going to put those in a ball or in a box. And I'm going to say all over the world, there is an ebb and flow. There is this kind of roller coaster where, a 10 to 15 year event will be what runs the course of it. And then it will just kind of change. The people change. Like lots of people leave the scene. Other people leave for other reasons. And this whole new flux of people come in, and then they start these really great parties and everything is great. And then everybody's starting parties, and then there's not enough people going to the parties. And it kind of goes, and it's like up, down, up, down. And that, while it is challenging, it means like everybody gets a chance at the limelight, and everybody gets this new community. Like I have no idea what our communities are now. I've been out for a while. So, but what's sad is because we're such a subculture, and there's really not a lot of us for there being even a good number of us, right? That the different issues really, really do unfortunately have an impact. It has an impact on the people that come to the events, the people who organize the events, and sometimes the mainstream perspective on how and what the kink community is all about. And right now, I think Vibrato and I have been talking about this a little bit in our past shows, is consent violations. So there's this, like, the Me Too movement has trickled into the BDSM community, whereby rather than dealing with an issue that may have been a miscommunication or something that happened, and being in communication with everybody involved, there's this, let's go on FetLife and slander another person, right? Because I'm a victim. This is just like, it just doesn't work to do that in order to get order in our communities. And people, I want to be really clear that I'm not, condoning, people who do inappropriate things at events. What I'm saying is, a person who feels that they have been victimized has every right to feel that way. And there still needs to be communication as to what went down, because sometimes it is a mistake. It is a mistake, a genuine mistake, and something was not shared. And there was an opportunity for there to be closure, like a completeness, a full circle of, hey, listen, I am really sorry. I did not know that was going on. Here's what happened for me. And can we come to an agreement? Maybe not. And if not, then we have a legal system. And if people do not take the time to utilize our legal system, it will never be there to protect us. I've had my own experiences with the law and having to bring sexual assault to the law. And no, I was not supported, right? But if we don't use the process and make the process better and continue to work the system, it will always be where it will fail us, right?
Yeah, and that's what happened. And like, after I kind of stepped back, a couple of things exploded here. And it was exactly that. People who were on FetLife being the police. There was actually a group, I kid you not, as someone who studied history and knows about politics, they actually said we should start a blacklist group. Yeah, like how many times is a blacklist? Like, do you understand the concept of that and the negative connotations where you take the law and you decide what's good and bad? Yeah. Like it was like, okay, and that's one of the reasons why I stepped away kind of a bit. And then I got involved with someone who was not kinky, and I just kind of lost touch. But I'm single again, and my brain is racing. I had a lot of very unique ideas I was going to bring, things that I don't think anyone did anywhere in the world. I'm not going to share.
We're not going to talk, Duane. That's why this is happening.
Exactly. We need people like you, Duane, because the people out there, everyone has a different perspective and brings something unique to this Kinky Planet that can be celebrated and shouldn't be squashed by virtue signaling. And you can't really shut people down, but you need to respect everybody and try and grow.
I offended people with my parties. And not in a way that I was trying to get a rouse out of people. I was just including other people in their kinks. So I had people complain about my parties that they knew going in what was going to happen on the stage, and it offended them, and they threw up. We did flesh hooks, and I'm like, I told everybody there was going to be a flesh hook. So if you get squicked out,
don't watch
by someone being flung around the stage and blood coming out the back.
I passed out at a Fetish Florida event. I had no idea. When I was like, I think I was 12. Some kid in my class got a bloody nose and passed out. And I was like, I laughed. I'm like, you passed out because of the blood. And then it happened to me at Fetish Factory. No, I'm sorry. Let me go back. It was at the Rubber Ball in London, and it was a torture garden show, and they did the hooks, and I was looking at it, my stomach started to turn, and then I was like, oh, and then when they kind of pulled, you could see the skin pull. I'm not going to stop there. I was out, bam, on the floor, gone.
And how did you deal with it? You dealt with it by saying, I passed out because it grossed me out. You didn't complain to the people, right?
No, but that's
right?
just
And that was
called,
the problem. Like in Ottawa, I think there's this, a lot of people like, I got offended, but it was like,
so you've
look
got to be
away.
doing something
like
about
I warned
it.
you.
yeah.
Right?
Yeah, sometimes that kinky karma will get you by the hooks, right?
And it's just a flash hook
Oh.
thing. It was just flash hooks. Considering what I want to do at parties, I had planned an event that never happened because I started stepping away. But we were going to have a couple of the leather guys do a massive fisting at one of the smaller events.
Yeah.
And like, I don't want to watch that. I don't really care. But what gets me excited is having a party where now the normal kink community, not from the leather community, there's two guys doing a very violent fisting scene. And, to me, that excites me that someone's going to see something. And if you're going to get offended by that, there's going to be enough warning. Just turn your head.
That's right.
And don't complain.
Yeah.
But the fact that could happen right next to me while I was doing a scene, that excites the shit out of me because it's different in Ottawa.
Yeah.
Right.
And
how do you know if you're offended or don't like things unless you see them?
There'll always be someone who will be offended, right? Yeah. You can't please everybody. And we can't stop doing the things we do just because people do get offended. Now we can be respectful by posting the things. This is an extreme event.
I always list everything we're going to do.
Yeah. And there's consent. You consent to that. There's a lot in Ottawa, Duane, and most of your events and even the other events, there are these forms that everybody signs knowing what are the rules of the party, what's expected of you, what might you see, and you basically consent going in. So look, we're adults. If something is not for us, you remove yourself or you just choose not to participate, whatever it is. So the hate is gonna hate, boy. So just let it be, right? Just shake it up.
I had someone complain on a public forum. This is what I hate because they like to hear their voices. So we had all the workshops. So we had 10 workshops. We're scheduling them in over 2 days. And we had a lot of people coming from out of town. And someone took the wrong turn. They couldn't get there for the morning thing. So I had to scramble around. And this is before everyone was on FetLife or Facebook. Like, it wasn't that common, right?
Yeah.
At the time, after that, I got a Twitter account for Capital Kinks in case we did do things that would go up really quick. Never had to use it because, it just never happened after that. But this person we had to switch them from the morning to the afternoon. So this one person really wanted to go to this event. But when he got there, it had to be changed. Now, instead of talking to me or my manager of the workshops, they just went home and then said, fuck this event, fuck you, you're all a bunch of liars, you suck, you're so unprofessional. And here's the thing, if anyone knows me in the scene, if that person had come to me and said, look, I feel really disappointed, what they didn't know is I talked to the presenter, they stayed an extra few hours and added another workshop on the next day. And if they couldn't make that because of their scheduling, I would have seen it as best as possible that this person could have talked to that presenter one-on-one and asked questions. That's what I do. But I don't like when people want to get online and they want to hear their voice complaining and they love the negative attention. And unfortunately, social media does that. A lot of people, they think attention is good, whether it's negative or positive. And it's unfortunate.
I hate to tell you this, but anyone who's going to lead anything in any way in this world is going to have a big target written, painted on their front, right? So there will always be these, the people who will not conduct themselves in a certain way, people who, for no matter how great you do, people who will be dissatisfied, people who are going to take things in their own personal way or whatever. And You can deal with it the best way that you can, right? But my real advice to all the people who organize is some of the best people I've known and some of the best events I've seen out there. The organizers have literally been stressed and fallen, prey to this unfortunate, like, what's in the media, right? What people post about them. And it's not subject just to organizers. Look, movie stars, radio people, all the people often get consumed by what people comment on, because you're so passionate about what you're doing that to have even one person say something really negative, it just like pulls it out. Yeah. So I want to say to you that those people are always going to be there, but just keep passionate about what you're doing and don't let it take you out, and really don't even give it, once you've dealt with it in the best way that you can, just let it go. Like, you've done your part, and move on.
I would say with social media, anyone who's trying to do events, especially bigger events that take a lot of your energy out, expect what you see on social media to be 10 to 1 negative to positive. However, when you talk to people in person, it might be the reverse, or at least equal. Listen to their complaints, because some of them are legitimate, and you can help better run the next event. That's right. And listen to see if it's just some personal bullshit. Yeah. And then when it's personal bullshit, it still stings because you put your heart into it. Let it slide.
Great advice.
So on that, you mentioned that you've been to events in Montreal and Toronto. Have you been to other fetish weekends other than that, outside of Ontario and Quebec?
I just went to the Kit Kat Club, and for the first time ever, and I was at some smaller events in New York and New Jersey.
Okay, so you went to the Kit Kat Club, but not for the German fetish ball. It was just night. It was
the after party from the sex expo that was there, the Venus section.
Okay, so like their European version of Taboo. Okay, I understand. Yeah. And then the other smaller ones were like one-offs in other cities.
Yeah, there were more. Some of them were like organized by, like one was at Paddles in New York, so it was like an established
I've been
club.
there. Yeah.
And the other one was kind of more of a personal group party I was at. I'm not showy and stuff like that, so unless I have a partner who really wants to be going, Contessa can tell you, in Ottawa we have a very broad dress code, and I don't have any fetish, any leather, any of that, so I just wear basic black, and most of the time, because I overheat, I just get into my underwear because I feel comfortable that way.
No, why not?
Exactly.
But I never strive, like I like talking to the people who do the events, and I go to some events, but when I'm just to learn to see what's going on, and you follow up online, but mainly I was always trying to get the pulse of Ottawa to see what they're comfortable with, and then what I can bring to make them uncomfortable, or more importantly, to bring stuff for the subcultures who were being left out of everything in Ottawa.
Right? Try and help the alienated. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, that's great. And I hope that this is all over soon. I know places like Florida, they don't care. They'll do it anyway. But I hope here in Canada, we can be secure in having events and being in public, and in our weekends having fetish included, and people can travel and come see the wonderful things that there are to see around the world again. So once that happens, I'm hoping, Duane, that you feel motivated to do something unique and bring people back to Ottawa.
Well, my brain's always available to pick and discuss and make plans. I'm not going to commit to doing events because, like I said, post-COVID, who knows what's going on. But there is still a scene in Ottawa, and there are still people who want to do it publicly. And there are those people who want those, like the latex group in Ottawa. It may be small, and they always go to Montreal or Toronto. Yeah. I always wanted to give them at least some parties where they were the focus. Because that's an expensive hobby, right?
Oh yeah, and I think that there may be. I'm actually really kind of curious for the future, because there's a lot of us now that have been kind of sitting around being like, oh man, we're going to want to do something when the world opens up again. So, there may be some other new groups that we don't even know about that are going to come out in Ottawa that we can, highlight. You'll be able to find them here. I'm pretty sure that we'll be able to get them and interview them. And so as the world opens up in terms of kink and fetish again, we're just going to be like, okay, what are you doing? And tell us, and we'll, encourage people to go to your event, things like that. And just, I don't know. It's like, who knows?
Yeah.
But I do know that for you, Duane, the first thing you're going to do is go biking in some other country somewhere.
Yeah, that's my passion.
Cycling?
Biking around the world and helping dogs. I do want to say a little story from the biggest capital kink we had, the 5-day weekend, when I had Jean Bardot come. So I gave her carte blanche. I said, you just got to do a 5 to 10 minute show and then walk around and stuff. And then while she was on the plane, I got an email from her. I guess she already left. And I got from the church group who was renting out the church. They did put one stipulation, but it wasn't when I first met them. They told me after that, no blasphemy. Okay. Because, they got to keep up stuff. You're in a church. So Jean tells me I got my latex nun outfit and I'm going to have a little schoolboy and I'm going to fuck him in the ass with a dildo and come all over him. And I was like, you can't change your thing now. You're already on the way.
And that's her signature show.
Yeah.
Like that. I mean, to me, that's why I was like, well, of course, Duane's going to book her for the nun show at the church. Of course.
And it was fucking awesome. And I didn't get in trouble, but I was a little worried. But what are they going to do once it's already started?
Well, it's not blasphemy.
We had a friend here. He loved it.
Duane, it's not blasphemy because Jesus is all about love.
Yeah.
There you go.
Exactly.
Even if it's a nun
Mr. Leather Ottawa the year after, he got to be the subject. And he was great. I can't remember his scene name. I just know his real name, so I won't say it now. But he had a great time. And I'll tell you one thing about the praise or the condemnation you face. After I hadn't done something for about 3 years, I ran into this guy who did the scene with Jean, and he said he was out in Montreal at a party, and people mentioned the Capital Kink weekend and said that was a great time. And that's the praise that even years later they were talking about, because that was my goal. I brought in Jean, I made it a 5-day weekend, and my goal was to then expand it. I lost a little bit of money, but it was worth it for what I was creating. But unfortunately, my own personal stress levels, I just kind of didn't do it again the next year.
It's not easy being a promoter, and not a lot of people sympathize with you out there. So we want to let our kinky traveler know that there's people out there doing hard work and making sure that you're having fun. And that's why they're doing it.
Yeah,
definitely.
And I'm going to tell you, kinky travelers, people either have to up the ante now and put out something like really spectacular and unique, because what Duane, other people, other organizers in the past have done for fetish events, you're going to have to top that stuff. And that's going to get harder as it goes. Because, if you just some of the stories you hear now,
I think if
amazing.
certain cities or areas, always topping do things, but if they kind of focus on part of it being very unique, say they do a one kind of unique part of their weekends or parties, then that's a reason to travel too. So you're like, exactly. In New York you do this, no one else does that. In Ottawa, maybe we'll get there someday and go, Ottawa's where they do this weird kink, and I can't wait to watch. I'm not into it, never going to do it, but God, do I ever want to watch it.
Ottawa's where they almost set the entire venue on fire. So that's
when they blew up the place, stuff like that. Or that's another thing. One of the triple penetrations, I think somebody was angry at us because, I can't prove anything, but somebody said, "Oh, I'm coming to the event on FetLife." "Oh, I'm coming."
Right. Sure.
That's not how you come to our event. You still got to buy a ticket, especially since we're having alcohol there. It all had to be pre-done. You couldn't just buy a ticket at the door. Someone called the cops on us.
Why?
So 2 undercover cops came, dressed
remember that.
in jeans. They were not to dress code. So I had to talk with them for half an hour. I'm being as friendly as possible, but I told them, and it just, the way they came is like someone obviously tipped it off, because no one knew about our party and where it was.
We thought they were fake cops, by the way. We all thought they were just people dressed up.
Oh yeah, you were at that show, right? Yeah, 'cause I actually told them to talk to you.
Yeah.
They wanted to go mingle, and I said, look, if you were, he said, well, we check out these events and we find them online. I was like, if you did, you wouldn't be here in jeans. And now my guests are going to be uncomfortable because you're ruining the atmosphere. So obviously it was a cop. He showed me his badge. I checked it out. I was very unhappy. If he was wearing all black, I would have been okay. Go ahead, see what's going on. And then so remember, I told him to talk to the hot redhead. I can't remember what you're wearing that year because I knew you would handle it better, and you would know he was a cop right away. So they walked around, and this is a show where we were having, like I said, no physical sex, but penetration with toys was allowed.
Right.
We had a stomping. Was that the one we had stomping? Yeah. So extremely violent show.
I was like, oh my God, they were really great about it. I have to say, they were fantastic. They were open-minded. They went around, they respected what was happening. They didn't seem to have any issues. They were just looking for safety. And they were just like very shocked. They were just like, oh, well, we had no idea that this kind of stuff was going on, but like, they didn't judge it. Though they were a little bit taken aback by some of the activities.
I have a feeling they went out to Montreal the next month, so because they couldn't do it in Ottawa since they're police officers, but they probably sought it out after. They seemed very interested.
Oh, sure. They did.
I know
they did.
I know there are some police that do attend fetish events, and there has been an issue in the past with outing. So it is unfortunate, but kinky people come in all forms and
you gotta respect them all.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah, and I think here's a word to all the folks who are interested in going to events and people who, may be in positions where they don't want the people to know about, their private life and they want to attend events, right? I think one of the things that we can do, whether we're new or we've been around for a long time, or just exploring, whatever it is to remember that everybody's out there wanting to have a good time and enjoy themselves, and to try to, maintain that privacy for others, right? Like how we conduct ourselves, the way that we, model what we want to see. What's that Buddhist, be the change you want to see in the world.
Yeah, that was Gandhi. Yeah.
Yeah, Gandhi, thank you. So for those of you who are listening that actually are going to be attending events in the future for the first time, how you act or behave, other people see that, right? And so for those of us who have been around for a long time, it's really important to be out there and be, chatting with people and welcoming them. And, it's important to get some information before you go to parties of how should you act, what is there a way to do, and conduct yourself accordingly, because that makes a great atmosphere for everyone.
And with this world where everything is so online, everyone's got a phone with a camera. This kink community has to be cognizant of people's privacy, because it's not always accepted out there. So if you're a celebrity, or if you're someone who works in education, healthcare, law enforcement, you don't want to be outed. That could ruin your life, your career, everything. So you got to put yourself in that mindset as well, as before especially you want to take a selfie with the politician in Ottawa. Maybe the prime minister or something like that might be at a fetish event.
Yeah, maybe the prime minister.
Yeah. I haven't seen them, but I'm pretty sure they have their own parties in their own underground, and it's wild.
Well, if you had seen him, Duane, you wouldn't say that anyway, right?
That's true.
Exactly.
That is true. But we have that's another thing at my events that weren't at any other events. I tried to pay my performers whatever I could and as fair as I could. But I also paid in the triple penetration parties. I started paying my security. They did a great job. They worked more than anyone because they were there before the show and they helped me pack up. They took away people's phones and told them you get them at the end of the night. And we've had to kick people out because people they can't get off their addiction of their phones. And then they'll say, we weren't filming, but you got your phone out. We don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Just don't. I know people are attached into their skin with their phone and they can't separate, but
a lot of events these days, they'll put a sticker over your cameras.
Yeah.
So that way you can't actually take photos.
Yeah, but there's 2 cameras, and
Yeah, you have to have
some
both
of them
yeah.
have 5 cameras on them now.
And I know they're all cameras.
Actually, another interesting, I know that, where was it? I believe it was at, I'm pretty sure it was Montreal Fetish Weekend, but I don't think per se, it may have been the Taboo Sex Show. But what they were trying to create, and this is something maybe, you, Duane, or other organizers might want to do moving forward, is to have like a photo area, right? Where you've got,
We did that.
yeah.
We had a photo area, a cell phone allowed area.
Yeah.
At the earlier parties, we had a photographer with a professional photographer at the events. So they could take whatever, because they're dressed up. They still want to, take pictures, right? Not in their homes.
Yeah, and sometimes the photographers will bring models with them. I remember one of the models was just quite a few years ago, but was dressed up as Harley Quinn. So that was kind of a fun photo op for people.
Yeah. And if you got themes, like, which I always love themes, you could definitely do something with that as well, right? So
incorporate.
I got lots of it. Like, I was going to have, I'll tell you one idea that I never did. I was going to have the fun house idea. I was going to get a larger event with a high ceiling, and we were going to have, clowns and stuff like that, and weird popcorn and cotton candy fetish things I was going to do. I won't get into that, but we were going to get those blow up children's slides and stuff, and have
That's
sex
awesome.
games involved in that.
Oh my God. We did Candyland.
Naked people trying to run up a lubed slide and stuff like that.
Oh, that's brilliant. Oh my God, that's brilliant. You shouldn't have said that, because maybe we could do that, now everybody's going to do it.
Not it. We'll see what happens. Maybe we can make that happen, and you can have a fun house in there where it's a haunted house where people can walk through, and there's like fetish icons who are coming out at them.
You can even have it as a storyline as you walk through.
Yeah,
There's all kinds of things, like those violent haunted houses they have now, where they actually assault you and stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
It might be more accepting in the kink community.
Well, you have to sign consent.
We did an ALCC event. It was we called it Candyland, and then we had Red Rain helped us produce it, and basically, it was kinky candy everywhere. People dressed in candy costumes, and people had candies on their nipples, and we had the what do you call it, the human buffet candy style. All kinds of stuff, but we did not have the slides. That would have been great. Blow up slides.
Yeah, so I think like people had theme nights here, right? Like on the smaller play parties, but they were always just, you dress up like a Halloween costume.
Right.
If you're going to do a theme party from a producer's point of view, from my point of view, you go all out. You make the scenes, you make things actually fit in with that, and then you take some obscure kink and you fit it in there, and you show them something they've never thought of until they get there. That's the way my brain works. One of the things I started doing in the early days when I was getting involved with Breathless, I wanted to reach out to the other club members and have a thing called the Ring online before FetLife kind of took off. And then if you had a passport, a kink passport. So as long as the club members, so Breathless in Ottawa, Subspace in Toronto, you understand each other's vetting process, so it's a good vetting process. So you're like, okay, I trust you, you trust me. So when my members come down to your events, they automatically are allowed in. They don't have to do a 2-week vetting process. And then I want to do that slowly and bring it outside of this area, maybe go down to New York, grow it to a point where there's this circle where you get this pass that's good everywhere, where everyone has agreed upon stuff. And then I wanted to get really big and have every 4 years do a kink Olympics.
Nice.
Oh, that's awesome.
And like the Olympics, a city gets to host it. You put your bids in. You got to force it. You got to prove that you got, like, say, a farm rented where there's no one can watch, and it has big enough area where you can put up the play scenes and stuff like that.
Otherworld Kingdom. Have you ever heard of that? Check.
So that's the kind of way my brain, because to me that's for the kink traveler.
Yeah.
Like, you would actually have a kink passport. And then eventually it would grow. And Contessa had people like in Germany she was talking to. And I think I talked to some of them like long time ago by email. And they were like, that sounds great. But things happen and you just kind of stay away from it.
Well, the other problem is that you've got to have a global kink community. And as it is, our city kink communities cannot get along. So until we can have that kind of a of a camaraderie or a supportive or community of people who are really out there to lift each other up and create a community where we're all really together.
Yeah.
We just can't, it just won't work. Right. But
Yeah, a lot of that too is the egos. And it's one thing, I work with people who, let's say they had a lot of egos. But I put that aside, right? Because there's lots of egos everywhere. Even the people who aren't running the shows and stuff, there's egos, different types of egos. But when you're trying to do an event, you have to get past that and say, what is going to make the best show event for everybody? Someone's going to hate it. Yes. Some people are going to love it maybe too much and not leave you alone ever again. Yes. But you have to get past that. Sometimes you have to make a decision, though, if you're working with someone who's a good worker, but has pissed off everyone in the scene. I've had to make those decisions too, but that happens. But I think the real people who put their heart and soul into this, even if they have egos, anyone who gets involved enough to make these events knows that it's not a profit. They might make a little bit of money, but they're never going to quit their real job. There's very few people can do that.
Yes. Yeah.
And the people who've done that, at least, even if they have egos, they've committed and they've shown heart into the community. So yeah, they might want praise. They might want to look like the king of the party, but they're still doing a lot of work for the people who attend, no matter what happens. And I don't want to be the king of the party. I want to stay back.
Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to the IOC. I don't think we can get anything done for Tokyo, but maybe for Paris in 2024 or LA in 2028.
Maybe.
We'll see if we can
Japan's
get that
pretty kinky, and they're really pushing the Olympics this year, no matter what. So
I don't know if we have the time to really get all our events. Perhaps flogging will be part of it, but
I think we could do it. Honestly, I think we still have time. Look, we're seasoned. We can make that happen. We just got to have like a little, it's called the after party Olympics, after Olympics.
Well, the furries could be automatically put in there because all those mascots they have in Japan and things, boom, ready to go. And that was another thing. I was going to have a side party for furries. I only knew 2, but I'm sure they're out there.
French made shot put, I tell you. I mean, it's a thing. Like French, I can tell you.
I wanted to hit every sub community in the city and give them a chance to have a public party because they might not even know each other. And if they come, even if it's a small group, they might have their own parties after that, specifically for themselves. And great.
The furry events are tricky because they do have mascot conventions, but those are family friendly and they don't like the association with furries. They have like some kind of issue with that.
So here's the thing though, that is called cosplay and it's called, like you say, what was the word you used? Convention?
Mascot convention.
Mascot convention. And furries are furries. And there is a distinction between furries and furry piles where you do dirty, naughty things.
There's subgroups within the furries too. And you have to be aware. That's why whenever you plan any parties for something like that in a small community like Ottawa, you contact the people and you get them involved and you ask them and you learn and say, look, this isn't about me, it's about you. What do you need? What can I do just to help you guys out? And that's what I feel sometimes. I'm not just a party planner. I feel like I'm trying to help facilitate the smaller kinks, like Breathless did in the early days, having all these sub meetings that were free for different groups so people could come out and talk.
And you know what, Duane? I really that is, I'm glad you said that because that's part of why, I really reached out to invite you on the show today, is because you have been a contribution to, the kink community, not just in Ottawa, but when you contribute to our subcultural kink, small BDSM kink communities, even in Ottawa, you basically impact the whole of BDSM all over the world because you create something that while you think is Ottawa and puts Ottawa on the map, when you put Ottawa on the map, the world hears about you and it gets to create an openness and an understanding about our community. And there's just no words to say, thank you for what you do, for what you've done, for the time, the energy, the love, the stress, everything that's gone into it. And a lot of your life goes into this. So, I really acknowledge you. I acknowledge you. I thank you, and I encourage you to, keep creating, but wherever you are, whatever you're doing, know that, every bit of what you put in was really had a great and wonderful and profound impact on the kink BDSM community of Ottawa, Canada, and the world.
Well, thanks for saying that. I don't, as you know, I don't like being praised. This is the woman at Hallapalooza made me get up on the stage and take a bow. And she made me make a speech, and she actually made me, because she kept chanting that she wasn't going to get off on the stage until I made a speech. I'm very uncomfortable. The good thing was the lights were so bright I couldn't see anyone. So.
Yeah, exactly.
But,
you didn't have to worry. Thank you. We are Planet Kink, and we record weekly. So don't forget to join us to find out who our next amazing guest will be and or topic of discussion.
I listen to a lot of podcasts, and generally they like to say subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you are. I'm not going to say or command you to do that. I need your consent in the first place. But if you do feel that you want to do that because you love the show, well, give us 5 stars. And also recommend Planet Kink to everyone you know, so you'll have people to talk to about the show, and you'll no longer be the only kinky traveler. Now, in the case that maybe you don't love the show, well, why don't you send us some constructive feedback? Then we will know and maybe make it better for you. So when you listen next time, you will give us 5 stars. You can email us at feedback@planetkinkpodcast.com. Have a safe and kinky traveling time.